Welcome back, my beautiful people, to STR News and Digest, your go-to place for everything related to travel, STR, and the business of hospitality. First of all, guys, tell me what you think about the intro. I think my team did a phenomenal job with that intro. I really like that intro. Oh, and by the way, today I got my co-host Callie. She is going to be hosting this podcast with me today. All right, I really don't have a lot of STR news. It's been kind of slow, so I'm going to be doing a couple of things by giving you some tips on travel, how to get some deals, etc. But quickly, and as always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, list them below. And I'll try to get to them. I know at the end we're going to be answering questions from last week and some of those questions that I received via email. We're going to do that towards the end. But for right now, if you guys have any comments, go ahead and list those below. And let me get to the first story today. And here's what I want to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about. First of all, I got back from Europe. I was in Spain and I was in France. I had to do a couple things in southern France, and then I went to Madrid. And as much as they're doing everything they can not to have tourists go there, holy smokes, especially Madrid. Now, in Madrid, when I was there, I forgot, they have what's in Spanish called La Fiesta Patronales, meaning in a lot of the plazas they were having festivals. Madrid had a bunch of little small towns had these festivals, and I got an interesting side note on that too later on. But but the point is, man, Madrid was freaking packed. There was so many people there. It was insane. Which took me a little bit by surprise because I normally travel in May and September or October because those are the slow season. Everything's cheaper. And even though I did see some of the stuff that wasn't as expensive as they would have been if I would have went there in the summer, for example. For example, I rented like always, I rented an e-bike to get around. And the e-bike was inexpensive, right? I had looked at what they would have cost had I gone there in the summer, and it was probably like $20 extra or 20 euros extra per day if I would have rented those in the summer versus now. But the point is, it was packed. But here's the big story about tourism, specifically foreign tourism, right? I just read an article in Skiff that highlighted a growing number of foreign countries that are spending tens of millions of dollars in campaign designed to woo you, the U.S. tourists. And here's why, right? Studies show that U.S. travelers have a tendency to spend the most money when they travel. So there's been a big push for this. I talked about some countries like in Japan, for example. Japan is killing it. They have been either number one or number two in terms of tourism in the last 6 to 7 months. And probably, if I look back, probably from the beginning of the year, Japan is killing it in tourism. But they want that. They're advertising that. They're spending a lot of money. And so are some of these a few other countries are doing the same, spending a lot of money, right? And if you look at as to why these countries are doing it, and then you look at as to why other countries aren't, they really don't jive, right? There's no reasoning why you shouldn't want tourists in your area. I get it. Places like Barcelona, places like Madrid, like I said, it was packed. But the amount of revenue that these tourists are bringing into these locations, people should be thanking and feeling blessed that they're having this influx of money. I firmly believe, especially Barcelona, and you're starting to see it in Barcelona, uh, in the long run, they're going to have issues with the economy. Like, for example, I have a friend that has a nail salon in Barcelona, and she's she's been telling me, because I've been keeping track of how tourism is there. She's been telling me that tourism is way down in Barcelona compared to other years, and her own business is suffering as a result. So, and she has a nail salon. So imagine restaurants, imagine hotels, other people, other businesses like bakeries, bars, clubs that depend on that tourist. Imagine how they are feeling now and probably in the future, right? So there's a big push for U.S. travelers, and as a U.S. traveler, you should be taking advantage of these times. I mentioned why I travel in May and October, but I'm going to give you an example. On this particular trip that I just took, I flew business class, right, to Madrid, and then from Madrid, I flew business class again from Madrid to Paris, and then we had to take the train to the small town that I had to go to. But my total cost in airfare was under $2,000 for business class, and it was a direct flight. Unlike in May, I flew from here to DC to Portugal or to Lisbon, from Lisbon to, where did I end up? Where did I go first? I think I went to Switzerland first, or Germany. I went to Germany. So, but I had to do this workaround to get my business class tickets under $3,000. I think I paid $22,500 for that business class. This time I paid less than $2,000. I was able to fly business class to Madrid, and then spend the day in Madrid, and then I flew to France, and then flew back, all in business class. But it was inexpensive to do so. So that's why I fly. So take advantage. Look at some of these countries that are advertising specifically for U.S. travelers, so that you can take advantage of the deals that they're providing currently, right? And here's a takeaway for short-term rentals. If you are in those destinations, actively promote your properties to U.S. travelers. They're seen and being bombarded by these foreign countries with advertising, especially on social media. So hop on the bandwagon. If you have a short-term rental in some of these destinations, hop on that bandwagon and follow their coattails and advertise, so you can take advantage of this. Now, as far as Europe goes, again, keep in mind that ETA or ESTA visa that they've been saying that they're going to implement for a while, that still hasn't taken place. But what they have done, and be prepared for this, what they have done was create a biometric check-in when you go into some of these countries, right? For example, when I flew into to Paris, I had to take. I'm sorry. When I flew into Madrid, I went through immigration like everyone else, but they took my pictures. My picture I had to put in my passport, and then I had to see the immigration officer, because what they're doing is they're collecting all the biometrics from travelers. And the reason I'm mentioning that, because it does add to your travel time, right? It does add to that. So don't book a connecting flight that's shorter than 2 hours. Meaning, if you're flying to, let's say, Turkey, and your layovers in Madrid, make sure that connecting flight, it's at least 3 hours or more, because it's taking a lot longer to get through immigration, checking in, and then going through back through the, not TSA over there, but through security to get to your next destination. It's taking longer. It took us a little longer, even though the airport wasn't packed. It still took us a little longer because we had to go through the biometrics, then see the immigration officer, and then proceed. Oh, this reminds me. Last week, I was in Europe, so I didn't do the live stream because we were so busy traveling and we were doing a lot of stuff by train. So I didn't get on last week. But I have to eat my words from the prior STR News and Digest, because I had stated that this government shutdown in the US was going to end within a week. Well, here we are 2 weeks later, and it hasn't ended. But having said that, I traveled during the shutdown. There was no issues with me traveling. There are flights that are being canceled, but they're not being canceled as related to the shutdown. And as much as the media wants to say that there's going to be delays getting through TSA, again, I didn't see any delay. In fact, getting out of the US was the easy part. And coming in, when I came back, I landed in Miami. There was no one. I mean, I went straight to, I have global entry, so I went straight to the immigration officer, and there was no one in front of me. So it was just our flight that landed. It was a little eerie going through Miami International and not having to wait, because that's a very busy airport. So it was pretty easy to get through. Now, the U.S. travel in 2025 update predicts a slower growth for travel this year, with inbound international travels around in the U.S. It's expected to decline the first quarter of 2026. I'm starting to believe this information because I looked at the data. For example, September was very slow for us, and international travel was very slow in September. Although it's typically slow, right? It's not a really popular travel time, which is why you see a lot of deals. But it was slower than it was last September. So and I've been looking at the numbers. So there might be a slight decline in the first quarter of 2026 as a result of what's happening now. There's also been a couple of airline and flight disruptions. About 1,500 flights were delayed or canceled across the U.S. But it was really, again, not related to the shutdown. It was related to a lot of other issues. For example, and I forget the name of the airline, another airline filed for bankruptcy. It just came in this morning. I just read it. They filed for bankruptcy. So you're seeing some issues there. Let me see. Okay. That's going to be all for the news. Let me just give you, and I kind of touched on it now, but I'm going to give you 5 travel tips if you're planning to travel now in the slow season. But these really apply more to the holiday season. You're planning to travel November and December, right? November, December if they're anything like any other year, they're very busy travel months. So I'm going to give you some tips to minimize your wait time and hassle through security. So the first one is to enroll in a trusted travel program like TSA PreCheck, Global Entry, and or Clear. Now, if you're not, I get this question all the time. Can international travels apply for this as well? If you have a U.S. visa and you're from certain countries, like specifically Colombia, you qualify for Global Entry. I recommend that you apply for that. Go through that process so that you can get that Global Entry. Because believe you me, Global Entry for me, if you travel a lot, it's gold for me. I mean, waiting in immigration, oftentimes either Fort Lauderdale or Miami, in peak travel time, you're waiting there for hours, people. Global Entry, you're flying right through. So highly recommend that. Again, Clear, Global Entry are some that I recommend you apply for and get before the busy travel season. Even if you don't travel a lot, it's not that expensive to get it. So if you travel a handful of times throughout the year, in my opinion, is well worth it. Now, this number 2 that I'm gonna give you is one that I get a lot of pushback from a lot of people, and that is travel light, people. Travel light. I'm going to say that again. Travel light. I have gotten to the point that, for example, this shirt that I have on, right? It is like a dry fit type of shirt. I get the built pants, and the reason I get them is because A, you don't have to iron them. B, you can fold them very, very tightly. And C, they're cool in the summer and they're warm in the winter. So the point here is to travel light. I'm not a fan of rollaways. I don't recommend you travel with a rollaway. Try to fit everything in the backpack. Not only is it going to save you time to get through security, but it also may save you money because a lot of these airlines are charging for your luggage when if you're taking them on board. And a lot of them, like this last flight, they were checking a lot of bags. I would say 50% of the flight was forced to check their bag anyway, right? But if you had a backpack, they didn't even bother with you. So I recommend that that's how you travel. In addition to that, have your liquids and your electronics at the top of, very easily accessible in case you have to take that out and put it in. And in terms of your clothing, if you don't have global entry or TSA pre-check because you're not paying attention and you don't want to pay for that, then make sure you're wearing some shoes that you can slip off and slip on easily, because it's going to save you time, people. It's going to save you a lot of headaches if you do that. And I like to say dress for speed, right? Don't wear a belt. Don't wear a lot of jewelry. In fact, there's no reason even to wear jewelry. Make sure you put that in your bag so you can get through TSA quickly, right? And then the last thing about that, be polite to TSA. It really chaps my ass, man, when I see people yelling at TSA, hey, these people they're not creating the policies, bro. And they may not be the most polite people either, but just say, yes, sir, yes, man, and move right along. You're not going to win if you start arguing and fighting with TSA. All right, last thing I'm going to go over is two more things I want to talk about is finding cheap flights, right? I'm going to give you some proven strategies right now real quick on how to find cheap flights. The first one I talk about all the time is to be flexible. I am a very flexible traveler, thank God. And I base my travel on the price of the ticket, right? If I can get a ticket cheaply, I'm going to do that. In addition to that, I take advantage of the airline's promotion as it relates to their credit cards. For example, I did this several years ago with Spirit. Then I canceled the Spirit credit card. And then recently I reapplied for that credit card and I got a total of 80,000 points. That's about, on Spirit, that's about 10 flights just for applying for the credit card. So you apply for it. I think the minimum amount you have to spend is $1,000 within the first 3 months. I do that very easily. Get my 80,000 points, then never use the credit card again. But you don't have to renew it the following year if you don't want to. And the cool thing, and I know a lot of people hate Spirit. Spirit has grown on me. I've been saying this for a while now. They have really grown on me. They're really trying to turn a new leaf. They're really trying to cater to a different clientele, and you're noticing that. They now have classifications. They have business class. They have a premium seating. But when you apply for that credit card, you spend that $1,000, you automatically get gold status. What does that get you? Gold status gives you the ability to board first. You'll be boarded in group 1. You don't have to pay for your snacks. You don't have to pay for your beverages on board. You also you don't have to pay for your seating, like your premium seating. You still have to pay for business class, but the other seating you don't have to pay for. Like if you don't have status, you have to pay for your seat as well, and you don't have to pay for your carry-on or check bags. You get 2 big benefits, but more importantly, you get about 10 round trip tickets on when you apply for that credit card and get that $1,000. And spend that $1,000. But here's the key. Here's the kicker, right? Do it when you fly with Spirit. they're going, the flight attendants are always talking about it. They'll give you bonus points when you do that. That's when I would do it. I would take that application, I would fill it out, send it in, so that you can get maximum points. You can go online and apply for the credit card, but you won't get maximum points, which I believe was like if I'm not mistaken, it was like 80 something thousand points. For sure it was 80,000, but it was a little bit more with the bonus. And again, those are free flights, people. So again, be flexible, use these loyalty programs. On Google Travel, it's Google Travel, Hopper, Kayak, or and Expedia, I believe. Those OTAs will allow you to do a price alert that will alert you to lower if that particular flight is lowered. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a little skeptical of that. So what I do and what I recommend you do is whenever you do any searches for either hotels or for flights, is make sure that you are incognito or private mode on your browser, right? And delete your cookies before you start doing your searches, right? That will help you get the best price. And if for whatever reason you're browsing and you don't, let's say you find a $200 flight on one OTA, but you continue to search and realize that was the cheapest and go back. If you're not incognito mode and you don't delete your cookies, I can tell you that there's a good possibility that when you come back, the price is more expensive. It's a trick of the trade that they've been doing for a long time. That's why I never do that, right? And the next thing is to book early, but not too early, right? I recommend trying to book your travel within 60 to 30 days. If you book 90 days or earlier, you're not going to get the best deals. And if you wait to the last minute, once in a while you'll get a last minute deal, but it's not that often. So for me, that sweet spot is between that 30 and 60-day window when you book. Here's another big tip that I've been using this for not a long time. I've been using this for the last year and it's worked really well. And that is mix matching your flights, right? I find out if there's, like, for example, you'll see it a lot. JetBlue does this a lot. They'll sell you a one-way ticket for like $59, but on that return flight, it's going to be like $200, right? So you technically paying almost full fare because that return flight is going to be expensive, right? But the trick is book that one-way ticket and then find another airline that has a special to book your return ticket. That for me has saved me hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in travel in the last 12 months. So that's a good one. And then the last one is, depending on where you're traveling, depending on the airline, highly recommend that when you book, pay for it in the local currency. I'm going to give you an example. I buy a lot of flights from Colombia, right? From Avianca, LATAM. These are Colombian airlines. And when I go I go incognito, but when I do my searches and I look for pricing, I keep it in Colombian currency. I don't put US dollars because then they know that you're not from Colombia, right? That's number one. But number two, when you keep it in the local currency, depending on how strong the dollar is, you're going to get a discount there. So highly recommend you do that. Now let's talk about, for short-term rental operators, here's some tips right now for you to take advantage, because I know a lot of you, it's slow season, and now is the opportunity to do a few things. One of the tricks that we started implementing 2 years ago was changing our pictures twice a year, in the spring, right, and in the fall. And when I say change our pictures, and what we kind of do is we change the decor a little bit, and then focus for the winter months, right? So it's winter and spring, and then summer and fall. So we adjust the pictures for those two seasons. Here's what that does. Number one, it updates your pictures, and it forces you to update the property, period, right? Because it forces you to go in there and If something's already due to be thrown out, you see it and you throw it out, right? But secondly, it tells the OTAs that you are a proactive host, and they have a tendency to push you up, an advertiser, or push you up. So that's a good thing to do. Next, the next thing I highly recommend, and I've been saying this for a while, but try to get on as many OTAs as possible. Don't be picky. Don't be selective. Get on all of them. The more, the merrier. Now, you have to have a channel manager or a solid PMS system for this to work, but I highly recommend you do that. I've talked about this a million times on this channel. The STR business right now is super competitive, right? You have to do a lot to try to get someone to choose your specific properties, because travelers have a lot of options. So make sure you take care of that. Adjust your minimum stay requirements. I know a lot of people don't like to do a one-day stay. I do it, but what I do is I adjust it for the weekdays. I allow one-day stays during the week, right, the weekday, but I don't allow that for the weekends. But you can do that if you have a software that allows you to do that. And if you do, I highly recommend you take advantage of that. Last thing about this, again, I'm gonna sound like, you know, a squeaky wheel here. Marketing, right? You have to market your property. Make sure you are marketing your property on a consistent basis. It's almost 6 o'clock. All right, I'm gonna cut this here because I forgot it's almost 6 and I have to get on a call. So I apologize that I'm cutting this short. If you have a question, Lorena's going to keep it, and then we're going to address all questions next week. But for right now, love you guys. I will see you guys next week.